Oh hey, I didn't see you there. How's it going? Alright, so here's the deal. I don't actually post match footage on this channel very much. Everything I've focused on this channel has been about improving as a player and just improving at the game as a whole. So I posted a lot of videos breaking down system mechanics, breaking down characters, and overall just focusing on kind of broad topics that we can kind of pack into one concise video as well as we can. But I really do think that as a player, you're limiting yourself if you're only trying to improve by learning tech, learning characters, and just improving and optimizing in that way. I think there's a whole aspect of fighting games that you can really only improve at if you're willing to improve yourself as a player. This is why I don't actually like when people say things along the lines of, well, I'm the best Z Broly in the Midwest, or I'm the second best Mitsuru or Margaret player in North America, which by the way, 6 years ago I actually was, but who really gives a crap about that when all the things that I learned to get to that point don't apply to the next game that I play or the next character that I play. So I've kind of put myself in a position a lot in the past. I've been playing fighting games for a really long time. For me, it's been probably about 8 or 9 years. And I've been competing for a pretty long time too. For context, I've been to the last 7 EVOs straight. I know there's a lot of people out there who've been around a lot longer, but when you really look at it, that's a pretty good chunk of my life already. And for a lot of that time, I was really focused on improving the character I was playing at. I was optimizing combos, I was finding really dirty mix-ups, I was finding answers to specific things in the game, and I was generally just trying to improve at the character. But then what would happen is the next game would come out, and I'd play that game, right? I played Persona 4 Arena for a long time. Then BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma came out, and it's like I'm starting from scratch. I gotta learn a new character, I gotta learn a new game with new system mechanics, and all the stuff I learned before doesn't seem to apply anymore. Because I only focused on the things that mattered for my character. I only tried to optimize my character. So I played Chrono Phantasma for a year or two, and then the new version of Persona came out. And I'd switched back to that, and I picked up a new character. Because originally I was playing Mitsuru, next game came out, I played Margaret. And it's like I gotta start all over from scratch again. Then Guilty Gear comes out, and I play that, and I gotta start from scratch again. Then Street Fighter V comes out, and I gotta start from scratch again. And no matter what you do, it's gonna feel a little bit like you're starting from scratch, no matter what game you pick up, no matter what character you pick up, anytime you do something new. But looking back at it, I really wish I spent more time finding things to improve at that would carry over between games. And I really wish I got better at improving in general. Countless hours wasted in training mode just learning combos that don't exist anymore because that version of the game doesn't exist anymore, or I'm not playing that character anymore. So like, what's the point? Well, I had a lot of fun, so I mean, that's always a thing. Appreciate that. I appreciate the time I spent on it. But yeah, how do I get better at getting better? How does anyone do that? I guess that's kind of what I want to talk about. So just a warning, I'm just going to be rambling for a while. I don't think I'm really even going to put any footage in the background of this, because this isn't Dragon Ball specific. This isn't Persona specific, even though that's what I've talked about so far. This isn't Street Fighter, Smash Brothers, Marvel, Tekken, nothing. You know, it's just fighting games. Getting better at fighting games. If anyone in the future is watching this, the COVID crisis is going on right now, and I am stuck in my house, and I'm going nuts, so I want to stand up and pace around today. So the more jump cuts I use in this video, the more it's going to seem like I'm teleporting. Also, the audio quality probably isn't going to be as good because I'm probably not going to be speaking at the optimal range from my microphone, but I don't really care. I want to stand up. Seriously, my back is actually killing me just sitting in my chair every day, so hopefully this is okay. Hopefully you guys don't hate this, but I might do this again in the future because I'm already enjoying just standing up. Anyway, so I'm going to jump onto a different tangent here. I want to commentate. I want to actually kind of be a commentator for fighting games. I want to compete still. That's always going to be probably my #1 priority when it comes to going to events. But I actually want to commentate. Years ago when I played Persona 4 Arena, I did commentate at a handful of majors, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the most fun things I got to do at events. I always look forward to doing it at events, and I kind of want to do that again. So I actually had a handful of goals. I had them written on my whiteboard over there. Goals for 2020. Things like how many subscribers I wanted to get to, how many videos I wanted to make, what kind of topics I wanted to do, getting partnered on Twitch, things like that. And somehow the most realistic goal I had, which was to commentate at a major, has now become the most unrealistic goal on that whole list. And that's just because with the pandemic going on, I don't imagine I'm going to be traveling to any events. I imagine a lot of events aren't going to be happening, which is a bummer. That's a topic all on its own. So my opportunity to kind of commentate events isn't really there anymore. But I realize with everyone doing everything that they're doing online, there's actually a lot of opportunities for that. We can run exhibitions online, we can run tournaments online and volunteer to help with those. And with this YouTube channel, I could actually kind of use that as a chance to commentate matches too. Although maybe it's more like match analysis after the fact, who knows? But this idea of commentating is actually what got me thinking about improving as a player, and why this is just a topic in general I want to talk about in a really broad sense. Not how do I get better at dealing with Super Dash, how do I get better with this character, how do I punish Reflect. These are specific things that you can get better at, but how do you improve overall as a player? And thinking about the kind of things that commentators have to do their job well, that's actually kind of exactly what you need to do if you want to improve at the game, improve as a player, improve with your character, just improve in a broad sense. So when I commentated for Persona years ago, the standard for commentary was very low. So I was actually considered pretty okay at it, just because as long as you weren't one of those people that just said exactly what was going on the screen, you're already kind of, heading in the right direction. People would commentate and they would just say what's happening. Oh, he got hit by the overhead. Oh, he didn't tech the throw. And then someone would get a big combo and be like, he got the fatal counter. A, and they're just doing this along with the combo. A, and then the super happens. A, super. And then there's another super that comes after that. And it's like, are they gonna do another one? Yeah. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And that's all they do. They just say what happened 3 seconds ago and then go A with the combo. And no one really got anything out of that. And it was kind of so bad, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here. I apologize if someone used to do this or does this now and they feel attacked. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it was kind of a meme where people would turn on a stream with like high level footage and they'd immediately mute the stream. It's like a 50-50 whether the person commentating is actually trying to tell you something important or just say what's happening. And realizing this kind of got me thinking like, yeah, this is an important thing. They're not good at commentating for the same reasons that a lot of people have trouble improving at fighting games. The people who are good at commentating now are so much better than they were years ago. Like the standard is just so much higher. There's still people that are all about bringing the hype, right? Like, I think the example is like Yipes, but he's still very knowledgeable about what's going on. He's still making an effort to explain what's going on. He's just having a lot of fun with it at the same time. And like far on the other end of the spectrum, you have someone like Sajam, who's pretty much entirely there to explain what's happening. Why are the players making the decisions that they're making? What are they thinking about next? What's their goal? Commentators now need to make the viewers feel like they understand what's going on. They need to, at the very least, make the viewer feel like they know enough about what's going on so that they can feel invested in the match and feel invested in even the small decisions that are happening in that match. Not everything is going to be some crazy moment where someone gets blown up for all their health. You need to kind of explain why are the little things that are happening important, and how do you get someone excited about that? And they do this by asking questions and coming up with potential explanations that help tell a story that gets us invested in the match. It doesn't always have to be the right thing. Not everything that they say is 100% correct. Sometimes you'll watch a tournament, you'll watch top 8, you'll watch grand finals, and you'll see someone make some crazy read, and the commentator, whoever the commentator is like, oh my god, he took the hit on purpose so that the hit wouldn't combo properly and he could win the scramble afterwards because he knew that there's no way to convert that hit and then go on about it. And it's like, wow, galaxy brain stuff going on. And then the actual player afterwards will get asked about it and they'll be like, oh no, I was just mashing. I panicked, I was just mashing. And then because I was mashing in the scramble afterwards when he dropped the combo, I was more ready to mash some more. They'll just say something like that. So it doesn't need to always be right, but this idea of asking questions and coming up with explanations is so important to actually improving. Oh, my neck hurts, my back hurts. I'm so glad I'm standing up right now. Also, this is like the first time in my life where I have no obligations to go anywhere, and I'm actually expected to stay inside. So I'm just, as of like 9 days ago, I just stopped shaving, and I'm gonna see where this goes. It's gonna be interesting. I have a feeling it's not gonna go in a place that I'm looking forward to, but I'm interested. But this idea of asking questions and trying to find answers and coming up with possible explanations to what's going on is exactly what you should be doing when you're watching match footage, when you're watching tournament footage, when you're watching your own matches back after the fact, whether it's ones that you've won or matches that you've lost. It's so important. Ask questions. Why did this happen? Why isn't he using a specific option? Is it too risky? Is it reactable? Why aren't they doing it? Maybe they're focusing their attention on something else, so they're just not thinking about it anymore. What stood out to me that I want to look into later, that I want to find out more about later? Write it down so you can come back to it. And then don't be afraid to rewind. You can watch the same match 5 times and look for something completely different every single time. First time you watch, you could just have no real goal in mind. Just watch it, see what stands out to you. And maybe you'll notice on the first viewing that player A always gets opened up whenever they're defending. It seems like they're getting opened up way more often than player B is. And you could just, broadly say, oh, well, player A has worse defense than player B. So, they're just going to get opened up more because their defense isn't as good, or their reaction times aren't as good. But what does that mean? How are you going to take that and learn from it? You really can't. Just making a statement like, oh yeah, their defense is better. Yep, defense is better. Nothing to learn from that. There's nothing to learn from that. So you watch it again, and this time you try to take note of everything that's hitting them. So the second viewing, all we want to focus on is what's hitting this person. Pretty much just focus on what's opening them up. What is the actual mix-up that's hitting them every time? Is it even a mix-up? You might think, well, I use that mix-up all the time, and I don't hit people with it nearly as much. Why is that? How come it works for this player, player B, at a high level in a top 8 of a tournament, and it doesn't work for me with my friends? How come he's able to get this person to get hit by this reactable command grab or this reactable overhead when I can't? You'll see player A get hit by this thing over and over again, and you'll think, well, maybe there's a second thing that they're focused on, and they're just not thinking about the right thing. Maybe they're fixated on something else, and that's why it keeps working. So you watch the footage again. This time, on the third viewing of the match, you notice early on that player B hit player A with a reactable command grab. First time they got in. They got hit by the reactable command grab, and that must feel terrible, right? It just feels bad to get hit by something you could have reacted to. And you probably think, well, yeah, of course, player A is fixating on the command grab for the rest of the match, so they're going to get hit by overhead. They're not going to look for Dragon Rush anymore. You realize they just got so fixated on looking for that command grab because it was the first thing that happened to them that they weren't ready to deal with anything else for the rest of the match. And they probably didn't catch themselves and realize that they were fixating on that the entire time too. And this is often one of the reasons why people get hit by the really basic stuff, right? Like, why is this reactable overhead hitting someone in top 8 at a major? Why is this Dragon Rush not getting teched? Didn't you know all Dragon Rushes are techable? They're all reactable. Well, it's pretty hard if you're looking for something else, right? And again, I don't want to just tie this entirely to Dragon Ball, but since that's what most of my viewers have probably been focusing on. But this realization probably serves as a reminder that you really do need to mix up your options on offense. I mean, that is why it's called a mix-up, right? You don't have one option. If you only have one mix-up that should just work every time, then it's not a mix-up. That's one thing. And if your opponent realizes that you do that all the time and fixates on it, then it'll never work on them. Or at the very least, it'll work on them a lot less, right? So I know it's like common sense, but your takeaway could just be, wow, I should be mixing up my mix-ups more. It's actually kind of an important thing to keep in mind. I mean, it's so simple, but this really does hammer home why it's such an important concept. Because if you can see it from the defending player's point of view, you can realize why people fixate on certain things, why certain mix-ups work more often because, well, yeah, I mean, you give people 2 things to think about, of course it's way harder to be ready for both of them. Give people 3 things, it's even harder. You condition someone to look for one thing early on and you switch it up, those other options are going to have a higher success rate too. By this point, by the third viewing, you could take away a bunch of important lessons here, and really, there isn't a single correct one. They're all valuable things to think about. I should mix up my options better, so that my opponent can't fixate on one thing and always defend against me well. Another thing, maybe I should try to recognize when I'm fixating on one particular thing too. I mean, we're all human, it's gonna happen, but if you can catch yourself early on and recognize that that's what you're doing, you can maybe take a step back and think, okay, well, I know I'm really tired of getting hit by this overhead, and I started looking for it, and it's not working as much on me anymore. But remember, there's other things too. Dragon Rush is an option, command grabs are options, cross-ups are options. Let's, not fixate on one thing entirely. Try to, use this as an opportunity to catch yourself and be more self-aware. Or maybe a third takeaway could just be everyone's human. You could watch this top 8 and just kind of remind yourself that this person's good enough to get to top 8 at a major, and they're getting hit by the simple stuff because they're a human being, because they can get conditioned like the rest of us, because they can fixate on certain things, and because not everyone's able to react to everything all at once. Just because someone might react to something doesn't mean that I can't use that tool at all. If I do a good job of mixing up those tools, everyone is going to show that they're human eventually. I've watched so many matches between Goichi and Fenrich where they both have amazing defense, right? Obviously Goichi's well known for it, but Fenrich is too. And they'll Dragon Rush each other a dozen times in a match, and it seems like none of them will work. It seems like they're reacting to everything. They're only really getting hit when they're trying to fight their way out on defense. And you know that they're both stressed out because they both are struggling to open up the other person. And they both have to just keep doing it anyway, even though there's a chance the other person's gonna continue to react to it and deal with it. But eventually, on the 9th or 10th Dragon Rush, one of them slips through, one of them works. And sometimes it contributes towards Fenrich beating Goichi, making him get 3rd place at the first World Finals, and giving Fenrich a chance to reset the bracket in Grand Finals. Okay, so with this hypothetical match, we've watched it 3 times right now, and we have looked for 3 similar things, but different things every time. First time, nothing really in particular. Second time, trying to take note of what opened up the opponent every time. And the third time, we just thought about why those mix-ups were working. But you could look for different things too. We haven't thought about how did that person, player B, get in the first place so they could have the opportunity to mix up player A? How did they get the first hit? How did they get in? Maybe you could go back and anytime you see someone get mixed up on your 4th viewing, you could rewind 10 seconds and try to figure out what decision led to them having to defend in the first place. How did this person get that opportunity? What was each person doing in neutral? Was someone just impatient and took a risk that didn't pay off? Did someone take a risk that did pay off and called out something at the right time, like guessing a super dash to beat a key blast? Or maybe someone was just so focused looking for something like a super dash that they didn't really do anything to stop the opponent from just running at them full screen and making them block something up close. I know it sounds like I'm just kind of rambling and making 100 hypotheticals here, but that's kind of the point. I suppose the big takeaway that I really hope you guys get from this is ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. When you're playing your games, when you're watching your matches back afterwards, whether you won or lost, when you're watching tournament footage, ask a lot of questions. Look for certain things, just try to be creative with it. How is someone getting opened up? How is someone defending? How is someone playing neutral? I just really think that asking a lot of questions is super important everywhere. Whether you're just having a shower thought, write it down. Don't let all these little thoughts and questions just float away. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Honestly, even if it is a dumb question, it might lead to something down the road. It might lead to some sort of creativity to help you in a matchup, something to help you realize a mistake you're making in your matches all the time, helping you realize where you're autopiloting. You never know. I feel like I've been rambling for a long time to make that one point, and I'm okay with that because you have to think about these sort of things. This is maybe one of the single most important things if you want to actually improve at fighting games, or even most competitive things, actually. Or almost anything you want to improve at. You probably have to wonder, why do I suck at this thing? What could I be doing to do it better? How come other people don't seem to struggle with this thing that I'm struggling with? Try to figure it out. Also, when you come up with these questions, don't just jump onto the easiest answer every time. You never know what you don't know. You never know what you're going to find out that you don't know. If you write this stuff down when you think of it, and if you take some quick notes, you can find some pretty interesting things to think about, or some interesting things to try out in the lab afterwards in training mode. And then after you mess around with it a bit, after you think about it a bit, or go in training mode and try to find an answer to something, if you still don't come up with an answer that, really satisfies you, that makes you feel like you really understand this thing, if you don't feel like you really understand it any more than you did before, don't be afraid to ask other people. You might not always get the best answer, but it doesn't hurt to ask other people. How come you always use this tool in that situation? Is there something specific that you're trying to beat when you use that tool? Like, what are you thinking when you use it? Why do you use that? And is there anything I could do to discourage you from wanting to use that tool? Is there anything that you think would make you stop wanting to use it as much? Maybe you'll get a good answer, and maybe you won't, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And actually, I want to branch onto that topic a little bit more, because I think it's super important. If you've ever played a long set in a fighting game, you've probably been blown up in a long set in the fighting game, at least once or twice. You know what I'm talking about, where you just play dozens of games with someone and it feels like you just lose every game, and you don't know why. And it sucks. It's frustrating, but it's also motivating because you want to beat that person. You want to beat that character, or figure out how to deal with that thing that's pissing you off, and you just don't know enough to deal with it right now. And then after that set, when you got blown up, you'd probably ask the other person for advice. And that's good. That's super good. You should ask for help. But think about it from the other person's side of things. They might not know what you're struggling with, and unless you give them more information, they aren't going to be able to figure out what that is. It's difficult to give useful advice to someone else when all they say is, "How do I do better? How do I beat your character? Do you have any advice for me? What should I be doing?" This is super broad. This is super general. It's hard to pinpoint what that person is struggling with and how to help them through that if you can't get a little bit more information from them. So, what should I be doing? Do you have any advice for me? That is such a broad question, and it's not really super helpful to ask that. Certain people are better at helping you with less information than others, but don't count on a great answer to that question. But if you can take, maybe a day and think about it, if you can watch any of your footage afterwards, especially if this was online, you should be able to watch your matches afterwards. If you really think about what you were struggling with, you can ask a much better question afterwards. Let's say you played a long set with someone and it felt like you could never open them up. We've all been there too, where someone's defense just seems like it's too good. I don't know how to open this person up. Afterwards, if you ask for help, there's a big difference between asking, "How do I hit you?" and "It feels like I can never open you up. You seem to block my overhead every time." Big difference there. It's kind of sending the same message, but to the other person, there's a really big difference. "How do I hit you?" could mean like anything. They might ask follow-up questions like, "Oh, do you mean on offense, in neutral? What do you mean?" But the second question, where you told them, "It seems like you react to my overhead every time. Do you have any advice for opening you up?" That's so much more useful for them. They can work with that. For the first question of general advice for hitting them, they might just say something like, "Oh, yeah, you should throw more." And maybe that is good advice, but without enough context for either of you, you might take it the wrong way, or it might not actually be the right advice. You might incorrectly think, "Oh yeah, I should just use throw instead of my crappy overhead." That's what he means. "Yeah, my overhead sucks. I should use throw every time instead." That's not good. That's not the takeaway you should be getting from that. But the second question is so much better. They might be able to elaborate on why you're having so much trouble opening them up. They might say something, "Well, to me it felt like every time you got in, you just go for overhead right away, or you just frame trap and kind of just hope I'd kill myself by mashing, and then if it didn't work out, you just back off and go back to neutral. So I just realized, I should just down back, not commit to anything, and look to react to overhead, and it seemed easy." If you don't give me another thing to look for, that's not enough. Once someone realizes that you're just overheading, then it's not going to work anymore. And maybe that's kind of harsh. I don't know if that comes across as harsh, but it's exactly what you need to hear. They might say like, "Well, I think if you used your command throw or your dragon rush just a little bit more, it'd make me feel like I have to look for more than just the overhead, And if I couldn't deal with everything, I'd probably have to start doing something else like mashing or trying to jump out or use a reversal, because if you make me feel like I can't deal with everything, I'm gonna either panic or I'm gonna look for the wrong thing and get hit." I mean, this is probably like the best case scenario for a response. People aren't always gonna put in all the time to give you a paragraph of information back, but any response they give you when you give them more information to work with is gonna be better than anything else they would have given you. So this is so much more useful. Because of how you worded your question, you were able to get a little bit more out of the opponent and understand what they were thinking in the exact situation that you were struggling with and that you were frustrated with. And instead of just thinking, oh yeah, I should replace my overhead entirely with Dragon Rush because overhead sucks and Dragon Rush is better, he told me so. That's not good. Instead, you realize that you can't focus on a single mix-up option. You need to use multiple mix-up options interchangeably so that your opponent can't focus on just one thing. And that's a really good takeaway because that's not something that just applies to your character or the game that you're playing in. That's something that applies to every game you'd ever play. You could apply that lesson to Dragon Ball today, and then tomorrow you could go and play Under Night and Birth and apply the same lesson to a different character in a different matchup with different people. As long as you remember that, like, oh yeah, I can't just fixate on one thing, I can't just fixate on one type of mix-up. You could play Under Night and Birth and realize, oh yeah, I should sometimes go for the throw mix-up, and sometimes I should go for an overhead or something instead. Like, it's super simple. I know I'm like kind of breaking games down into sort of a shallow aspect of sometimes do this, sometimes do that. But that idea of being self-aware about what have I been doing recently? Am I only using one option? Is there anything else I could mix in here? That's something that's going to apply to every game you play. And that's something where if you get better at it and you get better at being self-aware while you're playing, you'll autopilot less in every game you play, you'll learn other games quicker, you'll ask better questions. Your offense will improve in every game quicker than it would have otherwise. So yeah, I've been rambling for way too long. Ask yourself lots of questions, watch lots of match footage, watch your matches, watch top players' footage, ask even more questions, and when you're stumped, try to be specific and ask for help. I'm not sure if this video is a catastrophe or not, but I wanted to ramble about this because it felt like kind of an important thing to talk about. I just want to talk about something that would apply to helping you improve as a player instead of just helping you improve with a specific character or improve at a specific game. And assuming you guys don't hate this kind of thing, I would like to do this occasionally. So yeah, if you thought this sucked, let me know. I would need to know. And if you didn't think it sucked, then let me know that too. I'd appreciate the feedback. So if you made it this far, thanks for listening. If you want to continue learning Dragon Ball FighterZ and other fighting games with me, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you want to actually see me play these games, feel free to follow me over on Twitch and Twitter to see when I go live. There's more on the way soon. Thanks for watching.